So we just harvested these beautiful greens from the grow towers. It's our first real harvest. Look at these beautiful greens. When Mr. Martian asked me to do a recipe from what we harvested in the grow towers, this recipe immediately came to mind. So it's a recipe that I made a long time ago and I've made since. It's from a cookbook called the Ski Country Cookbook, I think is what it's called. But it's a delicious recipe. Mr. Martian loves it as well. So I thought that I would share it with y'all. This recipe has Swiss chard, pine nuts, golden raisins, and the recipe originally called for chicken broth, but I'm using apple cider. And then I'm also using some chopped green onions from the grow towers and garlic from our garden this year. And then to top it off, we're gonna top it with some beautiful carrot greens from the grow towers. Using a few things from the grow towers, not everything. We still have some harvest to go, but I'll go ahead and show you the recipe. It goes super fast, so if you have all the ingredients prepped, you're ready to go. First, you want to toast your pine nuts, so just toast them in a pan, a dry pan, until they get nice and golden, and you want to be careful because they can burn really easily. So we toasted our pine nuts ahead of time. We got our lovely huge cast iron pan, and I like cooking with cast iron because you actually get iron that your body needs from the pan, and this one is awesome. So I'm gonna turn on my heat. I'm gonna add about a couple tablespoons of olive oil. And since the greens, I just washed them so they're pretty wet, I like to add the greens to the pan before it gets too hot so it doesn't splatter. So with our greens about medium high, I'm gonna go ahead and add the green onions and the chopped garlic. There's about 3 cloves of chopped garlic in here, and the green onions were small, so I just chopped up a bunch of those. So in goes those guys. And then I just wanna stir to coat the olive oil in all of these greens. They are really beautiful. One thing I love about Swiss chard is all the colors. The recipe actually just called for Swiss chard, but I added some kale too, because why not? We grew it. So I'll saute this for a couple of minutes, stirring quite consistently to get everything coated in olive oil till the garlic starts to get fragrant and the greens start to wilt a little bit. I did chop some of the stems in with the greens, but you don't want too many stems because they are a little more tough. You could do stems ahead of time and cook them a little more, but I think it's totally fine just to add some stems because the stems have the nutrients too. For the apple cider instead of the broth, I went with the apple cider because one, I didn't have any chicken broth on hand. I did have vegetable broth, but I was like, oh, apple cider would be good because it would add some sweetness, especially since there's already a little sweet with the golden raisins. I thought it would be a good combination. So now I'm going to add in 1/4 cup of the apple cider. I am going to add in the golden raisins, and the cider helps plump up the golden raisins. I'm going to turn up my heat to high and cook down the liquid until everything gets nice and wilted and absorbs all the liquid and also dries out from cooking it. It's so pretty, it's such a pretty dish. Okay, so that looks about done there. And then we're gonna add in some of our pine nuts. Give it another good stir. They're already toasted, so we don't need to really cook the pine nuts. And then we're gonna give it some salt and pepper. It's good to add this salt at the end because salt draws out the moisture from the greens and you don't want everything too soggy. So salt at the end, and I always seem to oversalt it when I salt at the beginning anyways. Although Mr. Martian thinks I oversalt everything, so I do like salt. Now we'll just put it in our dish here. You could definitely use regular raisins or currants in this. I think would be really yummy. Okay, and then we'll just top it with some more pine nuts. And then I'm also going to top it with some of our carrot greens. So carrot greens, or carrots, are part of the parsley family. So early this year, in the spring, before we had other greens in the garden, I would use carrot greens to top dishes instead of parsley. So we're gonna use them here. And the great thing about the grow towers is you don't need to wait for spring. You can grow them all year round. A little parsley on top, and there we go. We have our sauteed Swiss chard with pine nuts and golden raisins, with greens from the grow towers. And this is a great side dish. So earlier today, I roasted a chicken from a local farm. So this chicken, I just sliced some orange slices and put them underneath the skin. My mom actually said she made that last night. I'm like, oh, that sounds so good. So she also added lemon. I did not add lemon because Mr. Martian has a thing with citrus. Too much citrus is no bueno, so I'm hoping I can get away with the orange slices, but we'll see. So I put rosemary in orange slices. And then I also, earlier this season with herbs from the garden, I learned this from another blogger. And it just has dried herbs and dried sea salt. So basically I just chopped all the fresh herbs with the sea salt and put them in the dehydrator, and that way you have fresh herbs seasoning to last all season. And then I put that on the chicken. So, and then I also stuffed some garlic and some pepper and some olive oil. The sauteed Swiss chard is a great pairing for roasted chicken or any other meat of your choice. So I hope you enjoyed this recipe. It was really fun thinking about what to cook for this video, and it was fun preparing it. So if you guys enjoyed it, please let me know. If you have any criticism, I'd love to hear it as well. This is my first time doing a video like this and sharing it with the Real Martians community. I know a lot of you are probably guys out there, so let me know what you think, and I'm excited to be able to share more of this with you. One of the benefits of gardening in a 4-season climate like we live, in a colder climate where we live, is you garden during the spring and summer and you hit it really hard, and then you have a time of rest. And Lord knows, Jeff and I both need some rest. So honestly, seeing everything do so well is fabulous. Obviously, this is our livelihood and is so great, but I need a break. The fact that these are growing and people are going to be able to grow their own veggies and not have to go to the grocery store, that's huge, especially now with the uncertainty of times. So for that, I am thankful, but I am also praying for a little bit of a break, a little bit of a rest. Even though I love the 4 seasons and I like the idea of working really hard and then getting a break, I understand that not everybody has that luxury. Not everybody has the luxury of having just a garden, property, acreage to garden. And so these towers allow people to grow food all year round. And one of the things that I learned a lot about this year is preserving food the way that we like to eat it. And so it was my first year canning and trying to figure everything out. So when you have a garden that you harvest in the spring and summer, you're preserving all of that and you're storing it up for winter. With the grow towers, you don't have to do that. So one of the things I learned this year is we had a bunch of carrots and we don't have a root cellar yet. So we had to figure out what to do with all of these carrots. And I was like, well, I'll can them. So I canned like all of our carrots. And I don't really like canned carrots. Mr. Martian does, so it worked out. But to be able to have fresh carrots in the grow system, to not have to find a way to preserve everything, that's huge, not just for us, but for a lot of people who, I mean, how many people have root cellars or storage or places they can store things? So that is a big benefit of these grow towers. Thank you so much for following along. Don't forget you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And if you'd like more recipes and inspiration, head on over to my blog, theblossomingtable.com. God bless you and your family. I pray you have a great Christmas season.